चक्षुरुमिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वर गुरुर्साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. So, in continuation with welcome to the Satsang. In continuation to yesterday's talk, but let me recapitulate a bit so that we get connected with what we were doing yesterday. Ellarkum vanakkam, namaskaram, pranams. So, as I explained to you yesterday, that the Bhagavad Gita is one of the most important textbooks for anyone who would look into the spiritual journey, because it is the great Upanishads put into simple language, explained nicely by Vyasa and made into 18 chapters. And as I said yesterday, it falls in the Bhishma Parva of the Mahabharata. Now, the Bhagavad Gita, as I said yesterday, reiterate again, is a Geetam. It's a song of the Lord. So what I'm talking is prose. But what you have to see is to see the gap between the words and figure out that it's actually the music of the Lord that is more important than even the words. However, being one of the Prasthanatrayas in the study of Vedanta, Vyasa has split it into 18 chapters, starting with Arjuna Vishada Yoga. May I remind you again that Arjuna Vishada Yoga means the yoga of Arjuna's sorrow, the yoga of Arjuna's insecurity, the yoga of Arjuna's uncertainty, and so on and so forth. Because one word, Vishada, in Sanskrit can mean many things. Basically, it means that Arjuna at that stage is in a situation where he cannot take a decision and he is depressed and he is in sorrow. And then Krishna, like his good friend, sits down near him and talks to him and tries to make him understand, look, fear and depression are of no use to a human being. At the turning point in life, have faith in the inner reality, in your heart, and move forward. This is the whole teaching. So in this situation, in some way or the other, you, me, we are all Arjunas. Because at different points in life, we get this uncertainty. We don't know what to move, how to move, where to go. This is the time when the Gita happens to be a very useful guide to our existence. Plus, when you finish the entire Gita, the hope that Vyasa has is that you will attain to Kaivalya or Mukti, which is the main aim of the Bhagavad Gita. Now, out of the 18 chapters, first chapter is the Vishada Yoga. Then there is Sankhya, it's Karma Yoga, and so on and so forth till Sannyasa Yoga. In the somebody's cell phone. In this process, a couple of things to remind ourselves. Till 15th chapter comes after the 14th and before the 16th. Right? So, just before we enter the 15th chapter, there is the 14th and 13th, and there is a 12th chapter. So what happens here, I'm not talking on this 12th chapter here, but just a grounding so that you connect with the 15th chapter somewhere. 15th chapter is so important that if a brahmachari goes to join a traditional ashrama somewhere in the Himalayas, for instance, you have to first by heart the entire 15th chapter before you can even eat your food. So everybody by heart it because annam is important. So anyway, so till the 9th chapter, the dialogue between Arjuna and Krishna is at par. They talk to each other like friends. His charioteer, same age, almost, good friend, relative. There's a nice dialogue going on. Then, in the 10th chapter, Krishna suddenly reverses this whole process, like changing the record. He suddenly starts saying things like, among the mountains, I am the Meru. Among the Achalas, I am the Himalaya. Among the Munis, I am Kapila. Kapila has gone long ago. Among the Munis, I am Kapila. Among the Vedas, I am Samaveda. I said yesterday that I am the Ved. Among the Vedas, I am Samavedosmi means that the music of the Gita, the song of the Lord. You know, all music in India especially comes from the Samaveda. Although it's 85% Rig Veda, but set in tune. So as we discussed yesterday, music is the bridge that connects us from the ordinary to the extraordinary. Which is why even truth in the Vedas and Upanishad is called Shruti. Shruti is not something that is read and remembered and reflected upon, something that is heard. And when the student is prepared, that hearing of the Shruti, Shrotra is ears, Shruti, immediately acts on the mind and the truth is revealed. This is why it's called the Shruti. You know, when somebody is not properly playing music or singing, you say, apaswara. That means Shruti is not clear. Right? So, this is the Gita. Now, in the 10th chapter, Arjuna becomes a little confused. Because till now, it was like, okay, I can ask questions, he can answer the questions. Then in 10th chapter, I am the Samaveda, I am the Kapila, I am the Meru, and so on. What is happening is in the 10th chapter, Krishna is breaking down the ordinary logic that we all have, which is that, oh, this is my friend, he's sitting before me talking, and so on. The Arjuna begins to question his so-called blueprint which he has created in his mind. He begins to understand that perhaps what this man is saying, he may not be who I think he is, maybe something else. Then comes the 11th chapter in which there is the Vishwarupa Darshana. Suddenly Arjuna realizes, really this is not who I thought he was. This is something else completely. The whole world is coming in and going out. Krishna in all his splendor as Narayana, as the Supreme Being. After that is the 12th chapter, Bhakti Yoga, because this was required to shake up Arjuna a bit. Because if the 10th and 11th were not there, the 12th would be meaningless. Because bhakti or devotion, listening to the music of the Lord, begins when we understand that our reasoning is very limited. It cannot go beyond a certain point. So having laid that base, then we go to the 13th and 14th, then Purushottama. Then Purushottama Yoga makes sense. Now, Purushottama means the Purusha who is beyond everything. Uttama Purusha. So, now we will continue. I wanted to just brush up a bit before. So, yesterday we did only 2 slokas. We started with the first sloka. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha Atha Panchadashodhyaya. Shri Bhagavan Vacha. Urdhvamulam mathasyakham ashwatham prahuravyayam chandamsi yasya parnani yastam vedasa vedavid. This is how it starts, which means Krishna says there is an upside down ashwatha tree, upside down, which we are not accustomed to, which means also putting our ordinary rational mind into topsy-turvy. Because we have heard only trees which have roots down and branches above. Here is a tree whose roots are up above and branches below. So which tree is this? Krishna calls it the Ashwatha. And Ashwatha is the people tree. From ancient times, the people tree is famous for the great yogis, including the great Buddha. God has nirvana under a people tree. And he says there is one people tree, one Ashwatha tree, whose roots are above and branches below, upside down. Urdhva moolam. Now, which means what we see in this world according to this, chandamsi yasya parnani yastam vedasa vedavit. The leaves of this people tree, this Ashwatha tree. Please remember, botanically, the people tree is called Ficus religiosa, associated always with spirituality and religion. He says the branches are down below and the leaves, the parna, the leaves are the Vedas. And he who has to understand the tree, the root of the tree, has to start by studying the leaves. We have no other way. We cannot study the roots because they are up above. What is down below? The leaves and the branches. We human beings, the world around us, these leaves are the Vedas which we need to study. Veda means to study, to understand. So when this is understood in perfection, then you realize that the roots are up above. Otherwise we think we are the roots. We are not, we are actually rootless. The root is up above. And as I also explained from my particular parampara, of which of course the great Shyamacharan Lahiri Mahashaya was one of the greatest exponents. He, in his translation of the Bhagavad Gita in the 15th chapter, there is a rare translation, hardly available. He says that it also means for the yogi, the tree of life, whose roots are here in the Sahasrara, and the rest are all the nerves and the branches and the nadis. All commands come from here, all sensations are received here, and then the reaction takes place. And when you withdraw and understand these nerves, these nadis, this is the practical yogic interpretation, then you go to the root, which is the Supreme Being. And where is that felt? In the Sahasrara. So this is the root. Even in ordinary, normal human beings like us, the whole body operates actually from here. The master glands are there, the pituitary is there, the cerebrum is there, the cerebellum is there, everything. They are the center from which this whole body operates. Although we would like to think that we are operating by ourselves. If we are operating by ourselves, in the night when we sleep, are we consciously breathing? Is the blood circulation controlled by us? Is the digestion happening consciously? No. It all comes from there, from the root. This is the also, as I said yesterday, if you read the Gyaneshwari of the great Gyaneshwar, there is, the Gyaneshwari is actually a translation of the Bhagavad Gita in Marathi. Again you read the 15th chapter, you'll hear what I just said. The roots are, universal roots are up above, means beyond understanding of the ordinary mind, and this whole world are the branches and the leaves, while for the yogi, Gyaneshwar himself was a Nath Pant, he was from the Natha Sampradaya, Nivrittinath, Gyaninath. Says, or for us, for the time being, the roots are here and the branches are down below. Ida, Pingala, Shushumna, and so on. So this Ashwatha tree is to be understood not only in the body but also beyond in the universe, where the roots are up above and the branches down below. And unfortunately, for the time being, we can only see the leaves and the branches, from which we need to guess that the roots are up above and proceed in sadhana so that we reach there. So this is the first sloka. Urdhvamulam matashakam ashwatam pra. Shreya sang it very beautifully yesterday. But when you speak, it is not so nice. Then the second sloka is Adashrodhvam prasutastasya shakha gunapravurdha vishayapravala adaschamulan anusantatani karmanubandhini manushya loke, nourished by the gunas. We discussed the gunas yesterday. And covered with the foliage, the buds and the foliage and the leaves of sense objects. Its branches spread into regions, Vishaya Pravala, Adaschamulan, stretching from the ground below in the world of men, are its secondary roots. Just like the banyan tree's secondary roots, you see them? Just like that. The secondary roots spread down below to the world of men. And what happens? Karma anubandhini manushya loke, entangle human beings into karmic activities. Please remember, the Bhagavad Gita is not saying you should not be involved in karma, because there is an entire chapter on karma yoga. It's not that. Simply showing that how the mind getting involved in sensory objects and physical activities, because it is covered by the foliage of sense organs and sense enjoyments, it loses touch with the root which is up above. That's what the meaning is. Not that you cannot remain without doing karma. Even if you don't do karma, the body will be doing its own karma. No escape. If I say I'm going to the Himalayas and sitting down, temporarily, yes, it's a good point. Go and sit quietly in solitude. There also the mind works, because we can't leave the mind behind and go. It's coming with us. So, studying this mind and trying to be free of it is what is required to reach the root. Now, the third and fourth sloka are almost put together. Na rupamasye hatatopalabhyate nanto nachadhir nacha sampradishta ashvattamenam suvirudhamulam sangashastrena dridhena chitta tatappadam tat paramarkitavyam yasmin gathana nivartanti bhuya tvameva chadyam purusham prapadye yatha pravritti prasuda purani, which means when one is involved in this worldly life, the form of this world tree, this cosmic tree, is not visible to us. Because we are so involved, our sense organs are so involved in this world that we miss the essence of where the sense organs derive their power to function. If there is no witness behind these sense organs, we will not enjoy anything. But we think it is the sense organs that are important. It's the enjoyer who is important. It gets missed, caught up in this sensory world. So there we don't see this tree of life, nor do we see its origin, nor its end, nor its foundation. So what is to be done? According to the teachings of the Gita, cut asunder the firmly rooted Ashwatha. How? With the powerful axe of non-attachment. And repeating to oneself, saying to oneself, I seek refuge in that Supreme Purusha, from whom this eternal cosmic activity has steamed forth. Saying this, one should seek that status, attaining which there is no more returning to this world of samsara. You can't escape from this world. We have to function in this world. While functioning in this world, keep this in mind that instead of getting caught up too much in the attractions of this world, we need to cut it asunder and reach the root, which is the root of the tree of life, which is the Supreme Being. Therefore, saying that I seek refuge. Why seek refuge? Because in the situation which we are in, it is very difficult to extricate ourselves without fixing your attention on the higher being. Because we are always caught up in the lower. To extricate ourselves, we need to attach ourselves to something so that you can detach from this. The mind cannot stay without some attachment. So attach yourself to the higher being, saying, I surrender to the Supreme Being. Even in the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali in the Sadhana Pada says, Ishvara Pranidhanen. Ishvara Pranidhana means surrendering to the Ishvara. Surrender to the Ishvara, the primeval person, the Supreme Purusha, the Purushottama, from whom this whole activity has come, so perhaps he can take the whole activity back to the root. And saying this, one should seek that status, attaining which there is no more return to this life of samsara. Bear in mind, the first thought should be that I should get out of this life of samsara, otherwise it's all pointless. If you want to stay, that is fine, but if you at some point feel enough is enough, I must get out from this samsara, then this applies. So till then, experience life. Find out how much it can give us. Yeah? You go abroad and you see a lot of youngsters coming nowadays. Even here there are. Why? They have seen how much the dollar can give, beyond which it's not possible to get anything. So they're looking for something. In the 6th chapter of the Gita, which is called Dhyana Yoga, Arjuna is a little perplexed. He says, you are saying that the mind should be like a flame without wind when you meditate. I cannot do that. My mind is... He says, you would have asked me to conquer the wind, I would have done it. But to keep the mind without steady flame, without even a little bit of wind, is not easy for me. So what happens to me? Involved in trying to make the flame steady, I neglect other things. When I die, I am neither here nor there. Where will I go? Such people are called yoga brashtas. One who has done, not reached the goal. Still, Krishna says in a beautiful way, don't worry, your bank balance which you have earned will not go. You don't have to start from square one. Whatever you have earned in this life of spiritual effort will remain with you. But it has to continue. So what happens? He says, well, you will be born. Either, I am saying is because of this satisfaction and then understanding it is not enough. You will be born in a family which is very wealthy. Such a person, not Arjuna, but such a person, where in your youth you would have seen everything. I said, this is it. More than this, there is nothing to attain, and then turn towards the spiritual life. Or you will be born in a family of learned, good people, so that from childhood you would exposed to finding the truth and you will move towards that. So don't worry. Whatever you have earned, you have earned. This way, a person who has seen this world, which is why Tantra is misunderstood. Because Tantra is defined as yoga bhoga yade. That means yoga is bhoga. Which means some people misunderstand it totally. They think if you continue with bhoga, then you are doing yoga. No. It means that the human mind, until it is fully satisfied, generally, sometimes fully satisfied, it won't extricate itself, it will get stuck. But if a discriminating mind, if it enjoys life and sees that every enjoyment is fraught with some problem or the other, and in way ultimately we have to die. Is this the end of life or is this something more? When the mind begins thinking of that, then it says, enough is enough, I don't want to come back into this. If you want to come back and enjoy samsara, it's okay. But some people begin to realize, no, we need to get out of this chakkar. Then begins the aspiration to spiritual progress. And then says the Gita, one should seek that status attaining to which there is no more return to this cycle of life. Now, what kind of people will move forward? Nirmana moham jita sanga dosha adhyatma nitya vinivritta kama dvandvair vimukta sukha dukkha sanyai gacchandi mudha padamavyayam tat. Gacchandi amudha, the wise, not mudha, amudha. Padamavyayam tat. Those who are free from pride and delusion. You know how it is? It's so difficult. I've seen small people with pride and very big people with no pride. I don't want to say anything, but Nirmana moham jitasanga dosham, those who are free from pride and delusion, who have no attachments, seeing the temporary quality of this world, who are ever absorbed in spiritual pursuits, who are free from worldly desires. Either they have seen the hollowness of it, or they have seen enough and say, there is nothing more to gain from here. And unaffected by pleasure and pain, such people, freed from ignorance, attain to the eternal state. Now, attaining to the eternal state, according to the Gita, is not done just by theoretically understanding this whole map, but by freeing oneself from the opposites. Praise and blame is not mentioned here, but it's been mentioned in other chapters. Shitoshna Sukha Dukkheshu is mentioned somewhere else. Pleasure, pain, heat and cold becomes equal to the yogi. Plus, the yogi is not concerned with who respects him and who does not respect him. What does it matter, really? If a yogi gets angry because you're calling him a fool, then we are in trouble. Then better be not a yogi. Suppose it's all words, it has no meaning, right? I've said this many times, you call me a fool. Suppose I don't know English, what happens? I may know Hindi, I might think you're calling me a fool. I'm very happy. What only difference is the word. What does it really matter what we are? What others think we are, if we know exactly where we are and what we are doing. So a yogi is not affected by these things. Pleasure, pain, praise or blame. Such a person free from pride and delusion, who therefore is not attached here. Attached means attached either to pride or to delusion, absorbed in his spiritual pursuits, free from the desires of the world because he has seen this. It's hollow. Such a person attains to that eternal state. Gachanti amudha padamavyatam tat. That means that wise person, amudha, attains to that state which is free of all delusion and is eternal. Now, when one reaches there, what happens? People get worried when you read the next sloka. It seems like there is no electricity there where we reach. Tadbhas na tadbhasayate suryo na shashanko na pavaka yadgatva na nivartante tadhama paramam mama. That abode of mine, here Krishna is speaking, That abode of mind, when you reach, there is no Surya to show light. Why? Because it is self-illumined. Doesn't require an outside illumination. There are no floodlights. Na tad bhasayate suryo, na shashanko. There is no moon. Na pavaka. There is no fire there to light. But it is self-illumined, which means you don't have to worry about anything, because the illumination is from inside, not from outside. In that state, yad gatva na nivartante, when you reach that stage, that place of mind which is my eternal abode, that dhama paramam mama, which is my abode, one who reaches there need not return. Yad gatva na nivartante, once you reach there, you don't have to go back. There is no need to worry about how to get back, because there is no desire to get back. One is there enjoying in splendor the grace and bliss of the Lord. Now, having said that, Krishna says, but yes, that abode is there where you reach, you are free from everything. But I, sitting in that abode, is also part of this world. So the next sloka is, Mamaivamsho jivaloke jiva bhutas sanatana manashashtani indriyani prakritistani karshati. A fragment of myself, small fragment of myself, very small fragment myself, which is immortal in nature, which never dies, therefore never born, having become the embodied spirit in the world of the living, which means in the world of the living, including you and me, it is that Supreme Purusha who sits in his eternal abode, who manifests a small portion as the Jiva. Now there is a controversy whether the small portion or it is the same. Well, let's not get into that. That is the controversy between Advaita, Vishishta, Advaita, Advaita, and so on. The Gita mentions here that Mamaivamsho jivaloke jivabhuta sanatana manashashtani indriyani prakritistani karshati. A small portion of me from that immortal abode enters into every living being and becomes this Atma that embodies every human being, attracting to oneself the mind and the five senses which are born of Prakriti. Prakriti gives birth. The origin of the five senses and the mind is Prakriti, which means even the mind is not considered to be pure spirit. The mind is also part of Prakriti. Thought is part of Prakriti. That which is the Atman is beyond ordinary thought, beyond thought itself. The witness of all thought, but not involved in thought. So Krishna said, small, now there is this controversy going on whether this small part, the Jiva, is the absolute or the Jiva. Now, according to Shankara, when the Jiva sheds all his conditioning, there is only the Supreme Being, nothing else is left. Ramanujacharya was a little reluctant to say this. So in his commentary, he says that yes, that is true, that the Jiva and the source, the Paramatma from his abode, they are the same, yes, qualitatively, but not quantitatively. This is called, why it's called Vishishta Advaita. Advaita with a little Vishishta, little different. And he says that in a beautiful way, and for most devotional minded people, I think that's a nice way to look at things. He says, in the sea there is water. In the river there is water. In the pond there is, in our swimming pool also there is water. And in a small bowl we fill with water and keep on our table also is water. Yes, it is water, no question. But you cannot run a ship on the bowl of water which we are keeping on our table. According to Ramanuja, that is the difference between Jiva and Ishwara. Qualitatively, yes, it is the Atman. But in some way, you don't have the capacity to control this world. Maybe when you touch that, possible, but it's generally not so. So, at least if one touches that point, where one knows that a part of that Supreme Being is embodied in us, and therefore we enjoy the bliss of that Supreme Being, more than sufficient. After that, it's up to your spiritual journey to figure out what is what. So, attracting the mind and the five senses, which are part of Prakriti, material nature, I live in all embodied beings as a spark of the divine, of myself. Now, but then this whole process, the whole teaching of the Gita is also about different lives. One life you go, another life you come back, and the ultimate is when one is free of this cycle of birth and death. So, if you leave the body, then what happens? Now, Shariram yadavapnoti ichchapyutkramati grahitvai sanyati vayurgandha nivasayat. When the soul, this embodied being, which is a spark of the divine, when it leaves this body, abandons the old body, this jiva, who used to be the lord of the body, moves. And while it moves, it carries the mind, subtle mind and senses along with all the samskaras developed during this life, like the wind carries fragrance from the flowers. You can't see, of course, the soul going, Jivatma. It's a beautiful description, like the wind that carries the scent of the flowers as it moves. The Jiva takes all its sankalpas, all its karmas, everything along when it goes. Until it realizes that it is no different from the Supreme Being, then everything is washed off, no coming back. Till then, it is carried with us. So when you come back next time, we come back with that fragrance. Up to what you enjoyed at that point. Could be rose, could be lotus, could be jasmine. We come back. Or it could be bad smells also, which we carry. Now, this jiva, which is a spark of the Supreme Being, myself, according to Krishna, of the Purushottama, this being, this jiva, identifying with the senses like hearing, sight, touch, taste and smell, experiences the objects. Sotram, chakshus, sparshanam cha, rasanam, granam eva cha, adhisthaya manaschayam vishayanupasevate. So it identifying itself with the objects of the senses through the five instruments of perception, the jiva experiences these objects. But, says Krishna in this chapter, Utkramantam stidam va vibhunjanam va gunanvitam vimudha nanupashyanti pashyanti jnana chakshusha. The deluded do not recognize the spirit which is inside, the jiva that is inside, because it is identified with the gunas. He tenants or leaves a body. He experienced the objects through the senses. But the wise who have jnana chakshusha, who are wise, who have the wisdom eye opened, they recognize that while it is in identity with the objects of the senses and the sense organs, it is enjoying this, but it is not involved in it. It is the witness that enjoys. The Gita says, the vimudha nanupashyanti, the deluded do not recognize this fact. And they think that the Jiva, which is enjoying the senses, is as limited as the senses and the sensory organs that it enjoys. No, says the Gita, it is not. The wise see this and say, while in this life it enjoys through the senses, it is actually outside the ken of the senses. It is beyond the senses. Yatanto yogineschayam pasyantyatmanyavastitam yatanto pikritatmano nayanam pashyanti chedasa. The one who is contemplating, the yogi, perceives the Atman within oneself. But those whose minds are still gross and have not regenerated, though they may be striving, have still not understood this. Even the striving yogi, till he reaches that goal, does not understand that the Atman within is free of all this, even though it witnesses everything. So, what does the Gita say? Move forward. And then, from the particular human being and the Jivatma, it comes to the universe. Describing the universe, the 15th chapter says, Yat aditya gatam tejo jagadvasayate kilam yat chandramasi yat agnao tat tejo vidvimamakham. I am that supreme being who shines as the light of the sun and illumines this whole universe. And I am also the one present in the moon and gives the cool light. Likewise, I am the light that illumines the fire. Know that splendor to be mine. I told you a story yesterday from the Kenopanishad. Some of you were not here. It's worth repeating. Give me 2 minutes. We will finish. Don't worry. It's about the great supreme being who comes in the form of an yaksha to test the gods. This comes at the end of the Kenopanishad. He comes and he stands there, and the gods are wondering, who is this yaksha? We haven't seen him before. So first goes Agni. Agni is the most powerful of the gods. The first Vedic sacrifice is with Agni. He's supposed to be the knower of the Veda, Jata Vedas. So Agni goes first. He says, let me find out. Who goes? There is this yaksha. We don't know how the yaksha is described. The word used is only yaksha. And he is going to ask the yaksha, who are you? When the yaksha asks him, who are you? We always like to identify who are you. If somebody tries to attack you, you always, who do you think you are? Who are you? It's an old identity crisis for ages going on. The Kenopanishad starts with this question, Kene shitam patati prachitamano. Who is it that is behind this universe, behind you? Anyway, he asks Agni, who are you? Agni says, I am Agni, Jata Vedas, I know all the Vedas. I am fire, I can burn everything down on this earth. The Yaksha says, oh, is that so? Okay. He plucks a blade of grass and holds it before him. And she says, burn this. Agni tries all the tricks of his trade. Can't burn this little trina, this little blade of grass that is held before him. He can't understand who is this yaksha, so he comes back and says to his brothers, I don't understand who is this guy. I can't burn that grass which he held before me, small blade of grass. Vayu says, don't worry, I'm going. So Vayu goes. He asks, who I am, Vayu. What do you do? I can blow away the whole universe. I'm the cyclone, I'm the hurricane, I'm the wind, god of wind, Maruti. I can blow everything away. So he says, okay. This blade of grass, can you blow this for me? So he huffs and he puffs and he tries all his tricks, but he can't blow away this little piece of grass. So he comes back and says, I can't understand who this being is. This is unprecedented. I can blow everything away. This blade of grass I cannot blow. Okay? Then Indra says, I am the lord of all the gods. You know what is Indra? The lord of the senses, Panchendriyas, sense organs. He goes. And when he goes, he can't even see the Yaksha. The Yaksha is not there. He comes back and he says, I don't understand. I don't even see the Yaksha. Who are you talking to just now? So then Parvati, the daughter of Himavan, appears. This Upanishad is like that. From concrete, from abstract to the concrete. There's a form of Parvati described as Bahushobhamanam, very beautiful. She appears and she says, what kind of idiots are you? She doesn't use the word idiot. The power that you possess comes from that Yaksha, the Supreme Brahman. How can you do something which is against his wish? You cannot do it. Your power comes from him. That Supreme. So, know that splendor to be mine. Tat tejo vidvimamakam. Understand that the entire splendor of the sun, the moon, the objects, the planets, everything comes from me. The wise understand it, the deluded do not. Gama vishaya cha bhutani dharayam yah mojasa pushnami aushadhi sarva somo bhutvar rasatmaka. Entering the earth with my spiritual energy, I sustain all beings residing in me, residing in it. As the watery moon, I nourish all the herbs. According to the Vedas, the herbs are nourished by the moon. I nourish all the herbs that are available on this earth. Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva Praninam Dehamashrita Pranapana Samayukta Pachamyannam Chaturvidham. Based in the body of living beings, sitting in the human body as the Jivatma, I manifest the digestive fire, Vaishvanara. Digestion is also a fire, combustion. That is what is meant here. To convert food into energy. I becomes the Vaishvanara. Combination with the vital energies which are known as prana and apana. I digest the 4 kinds of food taken by human beings. Which means all kinds of food taken by human beings. The digestive fire. We don't digest our food, remember. We eat. And even the eating, if our hands are strong, we can take the food up to the mouth. If our jaws are okay, we can chew. Swallowing happens because of an automatic movement called peristalsis. It is not controlled by us. If peristalsis stops, we cannot swallow the food. Okay, done. You swallowed the food. Who digests the food? After eating the food, do I say, come on, digest? It's not in our hands. Proper proportion, if everything is okay, Vaishvanara is the fire of the Supreme that digests the food and converts it into energy. Excretion takes place not with our knowledge. Of course, when we can't help it, we go and sit, that's all. Circulation of blood. Do we say circulate? When it's not working, we have to go to the cardiologist. They'll put some pump and try to build up your system. It's not in our hands. Breathing. The breathing process starts at a certain point in the womb, in the embryo, after a certain time. It continues and goes on till we die. What is the meaning of die? The breath has stopped. We don't say breathe, right? It goes on. And if we have some ailment, even if we say breathe, we cannot breathe. Breathing is automatic. It goes on. Now, can it be automatic, or is there somebody controlling it? We are saying that it is the Jiva, a spark of the divine, that controls all these activities. While we like to think that we control all the activities. Now, this is the great connection between breath and the divine. Breath is intimately connected with the Jiva. It is the Jiva that, therefore, the breath is also the link to the Jiva. If you can link your mind to the breath, you're linking your mind to the Jiva, to the Supreme Being through the Jiva, of course. So, okay, then, Sarvasya chaham hridi sanyavishto matta smritir jnanam apovanam cha vedescha sarve rahameva vedyo vedanta krit davideva chaham. I abide in the hearts of all beings. From me arise remembrance and knowledge of spiritual verity. I also efface the memories where required. Where required, I added, the original teacher of the Vedanta is also me. I am also the knower of the Vedas. If I say I am a knower of the Vedas, I am wrong. This is what Purushottama Yoga is. The actual knower of the Vedas is the Supreme Being, not me. And I am the original teacher of Vedanta. So if anybody says I am a teacher, Vedanta, some extent true because you are teaching and somebody is listening. But the original teacher of Vedanta is none other than the Supreme Being. You see, in the Bhagavad Gita is the only place where Krishna becomes a guru, Jagat Guru. He teaches. Everywhere else he is in different modes of existence. In Vrindavan you know what he is doing. In the Mahabharata, the rest of the plays you know what he is doing. In the Gita he becomes, so he says, I am the teacher of Vedanta, the real teacher. Nobody else is. And remembrance and knowledge is also because of me. What does it mean by effacement of knowledge? Imagine, even in this life, with our memories, especially if they are unpleasant, it's difficult to live. Imagine human beings whose memory is full of past lives. When you come back in the next life, it is erased, it's effaced. You may be able to find it afterwards, but it is effaced. This effacement, says Krishna, is also done by me. I am the one who gives memory. I am the one who takes it away. Dvavimo purusho loke charascha charayevacha charas sarvani bhutani kutasto chara uchyate. He says there are two types of purushas for general classification to be understood. One is the chara, or the perishable, and the other is the akshara, the imperishable. The purusha in chara, the perishable, consists of all the jivas in the embodiment who are subject to change. While the akshara, that which is not destroyed, consists of the collectivity of all liberated jivas. At least over the years, many jivas were liberated without falling into the cycle of life and death. The complete collective energy of these jivas who are liberated is the akshara, akshara Brahman, indestructible Brahman. That akshara remains aloof from the changeful matter, unaffected by the movement of the earth or its activities. Which means there is the Supreme Reality and there is his Maya Shakti. Maya Shakti is the one which operates this whole universe but remains hidden. When you identify it with this Maya Shakti, then it is Chara. When you understand that it is this energy that is operating, that is Akshara. So, two kinds of Purushas, technically it's been described. However, Uttama Purushastanya Paramatmetyudahrita Yo Logatrayama Vishya Vivartavyaya Ishvara. However, there's another Purusha. Now you think there are three Purushas. Ultimately, all three Purushas are one. Anyway, there is another Purusha, the Supreme Purushottama, who is the highest of all and who pervades all the three worlds and sustains them. So here, when it is embodied, it is Shara. Unembodied, it is Akshara. But beyond the Akshara and the Chara is the Purushottama, the Supreme Being, who pervades the whole universe, which the Ishavasya Upanishad declares as Ishavashyamidam Sarvam, that Supreme Reality that pervades everything here. Yasmat Sharamati Toham Aksharat Apishottama Atosmi Loke Vete Chapratita Purushottama. As I transcend the perishable and I am also superior to the imperishable, I am well known as the Purushottama, the Supreme Being, in all Vedic and also secular literature. Yo mamevam sammudho janati purushottamam sassarvavid bhajati mam sarvabhavena bharata. O Bharata, O scion of the Bharata race, clan, he who knows me in this way as the Purushottama, he understands the true nature of the totality of reality and he loves and adores me with his whole being. Talking to Arjuna, he says, Yo mamevam asammudho janadi purushottamam sassarvavid bhajati mam sarvabhavena bharata. With all one's energy and love and affection, he worships me as that supreme imperishable Purusha, as the Purushottama. He, such a person, understands the totality of being. He loves and adores me with his whole being. Then, iti guhyatamam shastram idam muktam maya nagha etad buddhva buddhiman syat kritakrityascha bharata. That means this is the great secret that I have told you, O sinless one. The spiritual doctrine, the most profound of sacred lore revealed by me to you. A true understanding of this makes one wise and established in the sense of complete self-fulfillment. Om iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Supanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Purushottama Yogo Nama Panchadashodhyaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So this is the 15th chapter. 20 slokas. I think we did most of the slokas today. Yesterday we were making the blueprint. Now we can stop. Now we have another 10 minutes or 15 minutes when if there are any questions which can be discussed. I don't guarantee that all questions will be answered, because until I get the questions, I don't know what they are. Whether I know the answer or not, we'll check. Here is a question. Starts with a beautiful Hari Om. I don't know if they wrote or somebody else wrote Hari Om. Vairagya is often misunderstood as egoism. How can a student differentiate between the two? How can a parent? Is it parent? How can a parent understand the two? What does that mean? I don't understand this parent business, but anyway, Vairagya is often and misunderstood as egoism. Vairagya, what is the meaning of Vairagya? Vairagya means, in the Viveka Chodamani, Chakra says to understand the reality, you need two things. One is Viveka and one is Vairagya. Viveka is the differentiation between what is real and what is unreal, what is permanent and what is temporary. When one understands what is temporary and what is permanent, then one discards that which is temporary and move towards that which is permanent. This is called Vairagya. Vairagya is not ego. It's the understanding that this is not real, this is not permanent, so I must move towards that which is permanent. Therefore, I discard that which is impermanent. This is Vairagya. Without Vairagya and Viveka, it's not possible to explore the Supreme Being. This is what is being said. So, egoism is nothing to do with Vairagya. It may look like egoism to some people. If the young child says, I am not interested in anything, then it might appear like ego to the parents sometimes. But it is not the ego, it is genuinely the person, the young person is saying, look, I'm not interested. As long as he's not interested in this thing, is not interested also in cannabis, that is a different matter. So, if somebody is, you can't call it as egoism. It is not ego. Okay. Second question, what is the main difference in hearing spiritual talks directly from the yogi and listening to the recorded version of the same talk now? It's a good question. True. Look, I must tell you only what I know. I didn't listen to any recorded version of anybody. Because in those days, first of all, there was not much recording. And there was no digital, I didn't have a laptop. Where in laptop? In the Himalayas, no laptop. So all that I understood today, that I am sitting here before you, and talking to you, is because I learned from Maheshwarnath Babaji, my Guru. That was a direct communication. And the interesting thing is, he did not have any books with him. Forget about laptop. He didn't have any books with him. He taught, if you say Ishavasya Upanishad, okay. So what do you want? Kena Upanishad, okay. What do you want to learn today? Mundaka Upanishad, okay. So how? Sitting on the banks of the Ganga, somewhere in a lonely place, and starting with sloka. And I used to wonder, where is this stored in him? And it came. So definitely there is a difference. If you ask me, yes, there is a difference. I'm not talking about me and you. I'm talking about a great being who taught. There is a difference because here a person is talking, not here, I mean in this case, out of his own understanding. So we understand what is being said. If it is merely read or listened to in the recorded version, it's okay, it is better than nothing at all, certainly. But you cannot relate with that person and figure out what's happening. If a person says, you have to be free of anger and how to do that and so on, you cannot ask a question, are you free of anger? I have asked such, now in retrospect, I think stupid questions to Maheshwarnath Baba. I've asked him questions like, how do you know? Now, I regret for it sometime now, but that time it was my mind which was yearning for something, you know. So there is certainly a difference between listening to a recorded talk and actually sitting face to face and studying. But I would say In today's world, we don't have that thing. How many people can you sit and talk to? Where all can you go if you have only one body? So, good to have recorded talks. Many people come to me, we heard you on YouTube. I said, you can keep that away now, let's talk iTube. While it's useful, this is different, certainly. Not this, I mean, when you are face to face. Now, the second question is a very serious question. I don't know how to explain this or even have an answer for it. How to eliminate the ego? If that is done, then everything is over. Actually, nothing remains to be done. But how? There is no how to it. You can only see what problems it creates, what barriers it makes, what kind of effective screen it puts between you and the truth, and then say, I have to get rid of it. There is no method for it. If you understand something fully and see how it's not conducive to your growth, don't you put it away. In the same way, if you understand. But then if somebody says, I have no ego at all, it can't be true. Some ego is necessary for human beings to survive. But it should not be an overpowering ego. That's all I can say. So I don't know. If you think ego is bad for you, if you think, and it's not taking you to the proper source which you want to find out, then you should start looking, this is not good for me, and start discarding. There is no method. You have to understand and get rid of it. But it is true. This ego is the problem. Because the first step when you start studying the way to the truth, the first obstacle that comes is I know. The Upanishad says, he who knows, knows not, and he who knows not, knows. Now, you might think this is a play with words. It is not so. It means, when you begin to study something, start with the understanding that I don't know. Let me study. Not I know. It also happens when we listen to somebody. I'm not talking about myself. When you listen to somebody, very often we are not listening, we are comparing. I've heard something before, and you are hearing something now. So half my mind, 50% of mine is comparing. What did I hear? What is this guy saying? So there is no proper attention. So if you understand this fact, perhaps you can transcend it. This is part of the second question. How can you transcend? Don't have much time. How asanas will help spiritual growth, other than mental and physical benefits? Kindly assist. Assist in asanas? Request. Well, asanas are very good, but I know of great beings, great spiritual beings who have become illumined without doing a single asana. That is also there. I do. That's a different matter. Because the idea is, if you have a healthy body, you have a healthy mind, and you can meditate and move forward. That is the idea. And generally, according to the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which is the standard textbook on yoga, yama, niyama, then asana, then prana, and so on and so forth. So asanas are good, but it doesn't mean that asanas, there are not yogis who haven't practiced asanas. Because Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa did not practice any asanas. What asanas did Ramana Maharshi practice? I'm not against, I do every day for 30 minutes of asana. I'm 73 now, and I think my body and mind are maintained in a good condition with asanas and pranayam. All that is right, but it may not be an essential part of spiritual practice. What asanas did Mirabai practice? No. So, however, if you are practicing asanas, it will help you because it will make your body fit. It will make you comfortable to sit in a particular posture and meditate. All that is true. But that is not the most important part of spiritual life. But if you are following the Ashtanga procedure, then it is certainly one of the angas. No question. How do we apply the principles of Purushottama Yoga and other teachings of the Gita in our daily lives? The Gita is meant for applying the principles in daily life. If you cannot apply it, then there is no point in reading the Gita. It is not only a theoretical text, it's also a practical text on how to move. So read every chapter and see what the descriptions are. We are fortunate that 18 chapters of the yoga of Gita deal with 18 different approaches to truth. So all the practicals are right there. Kapila wrote Sankhya Karika, technical question. One of the oldest scripts that we have. Yes, Sankhya is one of the oldest darshanas, no question. How come Sankhya Karika stays silent when it comes to the concept of God? Now this is a very philosophical question. Kapila stays silent when it comes to the question of God because it is best to be silent when it comes to the question of God. Whatever descriptions we make will fall flat. So, of course, Kapila mentions Ishwara, but it's not Prajapati Ishwara. It's the pure form of the Supreme Being as Purusha. He does mention that. It's not that Sankhya Karika doesn't. But it's not the God as the Jains have no God, for instance. But they are the people who follow non-violence to the letter as a practice. So that is not important. It says silent. Now the Kena Upanishad describes the Supreme Brahman as Yad Vacha na Bhyutitam, that which words cannot describe. So some great people like Kapila have kept quiet, silent about it. That's all. The next question was, how can a student understand? This is what I was explaining. What are the requirements? This is the last question today, sorry. I will take the rest of the questions with me. What are the requirements for a seeker to recognize an enlightened being? Difficult to describe. I think an enlightened being will only understand an enlightened being. How can we understand? Our minds are so small, our intellects are so limited. How can we understand an enlightened being? And are there any stereotyped definitions for an enlightened being? You see, look at so many enlightened beings have lived in so many different ways. Some have been sannyasin, some have been grahasthas, some have been great singers, some have remained silent, and some have been like madmen. So how do we define? Yes, if through satsanga with that person, when I say satsanga doesn't mean talking. In contact with that person, if our mind is also moving towards enlightenment, we can say, perhaps he's an enlightened person. That's all we can say. It's futile to try and define an enlightened person. And they come in various forms. We never know how they come, where they come, what they are. We have some stereotypes, of course. When it falls into that category, we say, oh, he's an enlightened person. We really don't know. My only criteria would be, if I also am moving towards enlightenment in some way, if I am able to free myself from my conditionings in some way, in contact with somebody, whether the person teaches or just keeps silent, it doesn't matter, then that person perhaps is enlightened. Otherwise, it's not possible to move my crude mind into something that is so subtle. That's the only criteria that I can think of. I'm sorry, but I think now we need to wind up. I will definitely keep these questions with me. Some of the questions are interesting. Maybe I'll somehow get it through in the next talk on YouTube or something. I keep this question. Can you keep it safe for me? Thank you, Gauri. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Thank you very much. Vanakkam, Namaskar. We will meet again perhaps. No videos.
On behalf of the Satsang Foundation, I'd like to thank all of you for being with us for these 2 days of talks. And we would like to thank Sir for this entire week, for being with us, and for the joy of it. Thank you.
Thank him also for coming. Thank him for coming.
We'd like to thank Sri Rajnikant, Sri Nalli, for coming here this evening and for being part of this grace with us.